Blackson and A.R. Bernard.
I think a great starting point is to tell the truth to yourself. So many of us are living lives that are not authentic. The question I ask people is, what am I pretending to not know?
I interviewed many, many women from all walks of life, class, social background, economic, racial, cultural background. And at the end of the conversation, every one of them said, you know what? These 4 things really summarize what I'm looking for.
Plus,
the social media allows us to take on an identity that is really not who we are, just to sell ourselves in order to get a date. And that's a problem.
So many of us were constantly, on social media checking for how many likes, how many people commented on our posts, and it focuses our attention not inside but outside. I think we seek external validation when we're not loving ourselves. One of the things I encourage people, my clients, is to have a detox day, a digital detox day where you unplug from social media for a day, and as a result, you get to listen to what you really feel. You get to listen to the truth inside.
All next on Larry King Now. Welcome to Larry King Now. Our guest is Kute Blackson, teacher, inspirational speaker, and entrepreneur. Kute's book is You Are the One, a bold adventure in finding purpose, discovering the real you, and loving fully. What does the title mean, You Are the One?
I think many of us, we're looking outside of ourselves. We're looking outside of ourselves for love. We're looking outside of ourselves for someone to come and save us. And what I realize is no one's coming. The government's not going to save you. The aliens aren't coming. I mean, ultimately, we have the power within ourselves, and that's really the essence of the book.
And do you think most people don't know that?
Deep down as children, I think we have a sense, but somewhere along the line we get conditioned and we forget who we really are. We forget the power inside of us, and either we abdicate responsibility or we become victims and we forget. So
why is it that so many people who seem to have it all are unhappy?
I think they've forgotten who they really are, ultimately, and as a result, they're seeking happiness outside of themselves, thinking that the drugs or the fame or the money is going to make them happy. And I found that nothing outside of yourself will make you happy unless you're truly happy inside.
Do we prioritize the wrong things?
I think we do. Sometimes you might get everything that you thought you wanted, only to realize that wasn't really it. And so much of our culture distracts us. So much of our culture, social media and television and what have you, distracts us from who we really are. So I think it's important that we remember who we really are at the core.
You tweeted recently, honor those that have been a part of your life journey, especially those that caused you pain.
Yeah.
Honor those that caused you pain.
Yeah.
Why? That's forgive. That's as old as the Old Testament.
It's about forgiveness, but I think every experience is your teacher. And every single, I believe that we are here on this planet to grow and evolve, to become who we really are, to become the highest version of ourselves. So every single experience, every single relationship, I think helps evolve us and teaches us about who we are, gives us the opportunity for that. So I say who we are today, every experience, who we are today has helped us become who we are and ultimately give our gifts to the world.
You also say you have to love yourself, right?
Yeah. If you're not going to love yourself, who's going to? No one is going to love you like you imagine in your wildest dreams. So that's why I say you are the one. Stop waiting for anything to be different.
Is there a line between loving yourself and being egomaniac and arrogant?
Of course there is. I think part of that line is where you go into delusion, where it's just self-obsession. I think one of the sources of suffering is where we get obsessed with ourselves. So we have to be aware of that line, where is it self-obsession, where is it true self-loving?
And also seeking external validation, right? The acceptance by him.
I think we seek external validation when we're not loving ourselves. And I think that's part of the path.
What part of this process does social media play?
I think social media is a very externally focused medium. And 2 things. I think it distracts us from who we are because there's so many of us who are constantly, on social media checking for how many likes, how many people commented on our posts. And it focuses our attention not inside, but outside. And I think to really be centered, and to listen to what our truth is, what our calling is, what we really feel, we have to go inside. And I think those things tend to focus us externally. So one of the things I encourage people, my clients, is to have a detox day, a digital detox day where you unplug from social media for a day. And as a result, you get to listen to what you really feel. You get to listen to the truth inside.
How did you get to be you?
How did I get to? I don't know. It just was me,
Are you a psychologist?
I'm not a psychologist. My entire life has been a quest. From age 5, my first memories were 2 things: feeling a deep calling to serve humanity. I just felt it. It was a burning desire.
Are you from Ghana?
I was born in Ghana. My father's from Ghana. My mother's Japanese. I grew up in London. Now I live in the US. I feel like I'm from everywhere. And I felt this deep calling to serve humanity. And it was just burning inside. And I grew up seeing my other first memory was seeing a crippled woman crawling on the floor She picked up the sand that this man walked on, wiped on her face and stood up. And this man was my father. So I grew up in this, you could say, spiritual environment that was filled with possibilities. And when I was age 8, I started speaking to my father's audiences. When I was 14, I was ordained as a minister, given the mandate to take over his organization. But I knew that wasn't my path. So it took a lot of courage for me to actually listen to my own truth and not follow the expectations of my father and tell him I wasn't going to take over, to the disappointment and dismay of many people.
Do you believe in a higher power?
I believe that there is an intelligence. Call it whatever you want to call it. Some people call it God. Some people, you can call it, you know, blah, blah, blah. Whatever it is, to me, those are just labels. But I do believe that there is an intelligence that is functioning us. There is an intelligence that is living and breathing. You and I, you're being breathed, I'm being breathed. There's an intelligence that is functioning existence. That I do believe. I don't put labels on it. I just feel it. And I feel it is what we are, essentially.
What do you think of the greatest mystery of all? What happens when you die?
I'll be honest. I don't know.
Who knows?
Who knows? I mean, we can have theories and we can pretend to know, but no one knows. I don't think the question is what happens when you die, because that's what we often ask, and we have theories about it. I think the real focus should be, how am I going to live my life now, right this moment, this second? And many of us, we don't live. We're living like we're dead. So I think that takes more courage to live this moment.
Our guest is the noted inspirational speaker and teacher, Kute Blackson. Coming up, how Kute broke from the church to chart a different path. His book is You Are the One. Stay with us. We're back with Kute Blackson. The book is You Are the One. As he said, he was born in Ghana. Why did you leave the church?
You know, I didn't feel it was my calling. And the only reason I accepted to sort of take over my father's ministry was I wanted his love. I wanted his acceptance. But those were his dreams for my life. And I started asking different questions. And I just knew it wasn't my path. And I read a book by a philosopher, Indian philosopher called J. Krishnamurti, and he followed a similar path, and then he broke away. And in that moment, I knew that was my truth. It was one of those moments where I realized I had a different path, but it took a tremendous amount of courage for me to leave.
There's so many people in self-help now.
It's inundated.
What is the best way to use this book?
I wrote a book that was slightly different. It wasn't typical 7 steps to this, 4 steps to that, a formulaic self-help book, because I think everything that needs to be said has been said. I wanted to write something that was straight from my heart, and it's stories, it's metaphors. So I think if you read it and then ultimately apply it, that's the key. The application, speed of implementation is the key.
Can people really change?
People only change or transform if they are truly 100% committed. And most people come to me and say, I want to change. And I say, no, you really don't. Because if you did, you would have already. So you have to look at what the payoff is for staying stuck. And you have to look at where are you not committed. Because if you're not committed, you won't shift.
Some people say people don't change, circumstances change.
Sometimes circumstances do change, but I believe that if you don't change, if we don't change inside of ourselves, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, then you might leave that circumstance, but you'll recreate another circumstance or another situation or another relationship that is the same. You know, the whole principle, wherever you go, there you are. You take yourself with you.
What does your father make of what you're doing?
He respects what I'm doing. You know, he loves what I'm doing, respects what I'm doing.
All right, what's the liberation experience?
The liberation experience was a transformational journey I created about 10 years ago when I went to India. I had an experience and I decided it's a 14-day, 24/7, non-stop immersion experiential transformational journey. I take one person, one-on-one to India. I take away your passport, take away your money. You have a backpack, a pair of clothes, no idea where you're going. It requires total letting go of control, total surrender, and I create a deep transformational process that will strip you to the core. You write letters to everyone in your life in case you don't come back. You sign your will, write your will in case you don't come back, and you face death.
Why would you not come back? What do you mean face death?
Ultimately.
How do I fail? I'm not going. Face death?
I'm taking you, Larry. I'm taking you. We're going.
Like, why would you have to do all that?
You know, I think so often we're so busy protecting ourselves. In life, we're so busy playing it safe. We're so busy resisting death. And the moment we're born, death is the only guarantee. I say if you want to live fully, if you want to be free, make death your friend. You know, like embrace death. It is a reality, but we're afraid. So as a result, we kind of live timidly. I think we have to face, once you face death, it frees you up to be that much more bold. I look at people like Martin Luther King, and there was a great speech he gave, I've been to the mountaintop, and he thought, I've been to the mountaintop, and I almost died today, and you could feel there was a fearlessness in his voice because he had faced death. And so I make people face the thing they're afraid of, which frees them up to then give their gifts.
You think you practice what you preach every day?
I'm not perfect. I'm a human being. We're all human beings. I think, you know, we're often looking for perfection in the world. You won't find perfection in the world. So I do my best each day to grow. And I think if we're doing our best each day to grow, then I'm successful. I think, to me, that is the definition of success.
What's a good starting point?
I think a great starting point is to tell the truth to yourself. So many of us are living lives that are not authentic, not intentionally. It's just how we've done things based on our conditioning, based on our programming, based on what our parents want. We're not living the life that we were truly here to live. So I think a starting point for anyone is to tell the truth to yourself. Look at, where am I lying to myself? Where am I being inauthentic? Is the life I'm living the life I truly want to be living? Question I ask people is, what am I pretending to not know?
Do you do classes? Do you do speaking?
I do seminars. I do events around the world. I do twice a year. I take people to Bali, which is kind of based on my book. I don't really do the India journeys anymore, but I do seminars.
Why Bali?
Bali is different from India. Bali is a very tender, loving, feminine space. So
Bali high, they call.
It's gentle. Bali is gentle and transforms you in a certain way.
You're still you when you're in Bali, right?
What I do is I unplug people from their regular TikTok routines, where we have this sense of, this is who I am. I am my phone, I am my hair, I am my makeup, and I unplug people from those routines, and then I strip away those layers as to who you think you are, because we think we're free, but we're really not. So once I strip those layers away, in let's say somewhere like Bali, then people get a sense of, they have the opportunity to dive deeper in themselves, to get in touch with and question, who am I really? And I think that's one of the ultimate questions in life, who am I?
Thank you, man.
It's a pleasure.
Thanks to my guest, Kute Blackson. The book is You Are the One, a bold adventure in finding purpose, discovering the real you, and loving fully. I read it. It's terrific. Up next, A.R. Bernard joins us to discuss his new book, 4 Things Women Want from a Man. We'll be right back. Welcome back. My next guest, the influential pastor, spiritual leader, and author, A.R. Bernard. He's the founder and CEO of the Christian Cultural Center in my hometown of Brooklyn. And his new book, 4 Things Women Want from a Man, is out right now. There you see its cover. Thank you for coming. Before we get to the book, what makes your church different?
I think that it's because I'm a teacher. I don't preach on Sundays. I convert the auditorium of 3,500 people into a classroom. And I want to do 3 things: educate the mind, stir the heart, and motivate the will. And people come and they have their life changed. It's a conversation, it's dialogue, as opposed to monologue.
You are a religious man, though, right?
Well, if we define religious, it depends on how we define religious.
Believe in God, organized
Absolutely,
religion?
absolutely.
You believe in the New Testament, the Old Testament?
I believe in spirituality, of course. I believe that we all have the capacity to know and experience God. How we codify it is what distinguishes one religion from another and one experience from another. I was a black Muslim for 5 years and had a very, very important epiphany in my life that led me into Christianity. And it wasn't the institution of Christianity, but the person of Christ. That's who really won me over.
Have you a favorite candidate in this crazy year?
Oh, favorite. That's a dangerous word.
Hillary spoke at your church, did she not?
Well, yeah. I've known the Clintons for more than 20 years. I've known Donald Trump for about 8 years. And, have good friendships. But when it comes to choosing a commander-in-chief, we have to have someone who can bring about the necessary change, fight for justice and equality while maintaining stability and order. And I'm not convinced either way right now.
What led you to write 4 Things Women Want from a Man?
Well, the audacity to even suggest that I know what women want, right? Well, maybe 38 years of ministry, counseling, 44 years of marriage to the same woman, and just my experiences traveling around the world, the different nations, and holding men's conferences and married conferences. And, the number one complaint that women have about men is that men don't listen. So when I finished the manuscript of the book, I handed it to my wife. She read it, she smiled, she looked at me, she said, "You've been listening." So that was the greatest approval and affirmation I needed.
But how do you really get into, it's the most puzzling thing is a woman's mind to men are Mars and Venus, right?
Yeah, true. And, men and women are different. We think different, we function differently, we process things differently. That's a reality. And this book talks a bit about those distinctions between men and women. And it's important for us to know those things. 85% of relationships are doomed to fail. These are the experts who tell us this. Because they just don't have the tools or understanding of what relationships are truly about. And we live in a very transient society. The millennial generation has second thoughts about commitment, especially long-term commitment and loyalty. 40 to 50% of marriages end in divorce, first marriages end in divorce, and it goes up to 60% when we're talking about second marriages. So there's a need for a set of values, a set of principles and tools that we can use, subscribe to, that help us in our relationship.
There's 4 traits you look for in a partner. You list the maturity, decisiveness, consistency, and strength.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I cannot tell you
Is that
how
what
many
women want in a man?
Yeah, because I interviewed many, many women from all walks of life, class, social background, economic, racial, cultural background. And at the end of the conversation, every one of them said, you know what? These 4 things really summarize what I'm looking for. Now, under each thing, there's a subset. You take maturity. Maturity is foundational. It is the foundation upon which the other 3 are built. How many times have a woman said to me, I just wish he would grow up? But what does she mean by that? Not necessarily having the language to articulate that meaning. She leaves the man to interpret it, and he's trying to figure it out. But I find that what she really means are 2 things, responsibility and decorum. Responsibility, she wants him to take responsibility for his words, his thoughts, his motives, his actions, and his attitudes. And by decorum, she means she wants him to be aware of and know when and how to conduct himself in any given circumstance or situation. Men tend to regress into adolescence and childhood when they're facing something that they're insecure about. And they force the woman to become a mother and then get mad because she's mothering them. And these are things that we need to understand.
And they want decisiveness.
Oh, yeah. And it's a woman's prerogative to change her mind. But women want us to be decisive. And that's part of leadership in their mind. And in order to be decisive, well, what is decisiveness? It is the ability to make decisions quickly and confidently. And in order to do that, you need a set of values, a set of principles that guide your life. What's most important to you? What do you stand for? What are you willing to pay the price for? What are you willing to die for, essentially? A set of values, a set of principles. And when you have them to guide your life, you can make quick, confident decisions.
And consistency. Now, these are not things that women are very good at.
Yeah, that's the double standard.
What doesn't a woman want?
Well, she doesn't want immaturity. She doesn't want a man that's indecisive. She doesn't want a man that's inconsistent. She doesn't want a man that is weak. All right, so that's the backdoor approach to how I came to these 4 things.
We'll be right back with A.R. Bernard. The book is 4 Things Women Want from a Man. Don't go away. We're back with A.R. Bernard, the book 4 Things Women Want from a Man. One of the quotes on the cover is, A.R. Bernard has been a major influence in our lives, helping us reach a higher level in our relationship and spiritual growth. Denzel and Pauletta Washington, how well do you know them?
Yeah, I've known them for about 20 years. Have known about, their life and their struggles. And I will tell you, I'm honored that Denzel, a man of his caliber and accomplishment, would even submit himself to some type of counseling and guidance. What a man values is the measure of the man. And he values his family, he values his relationship. He knows that he has his own personal struggles that he has to get through in life, especially with the notoriety that he has. But he was willing to say, you know what, I need help. And I'm going to give you that access to speak into my life. And that's important because, many celebrities don't allow that access.
You've been married, what, 40 years?
44 years, October 1st of this year.
With someone who's been married 3 or 4 times, know more about this than you, because they've had diversity.
Well, I don't know if diversity is the answer. I think long-term commitment is really the test because why does a person get married 4 or 5 times? Usually it's because they never resolved the failure in the first relationship. So they take those same problems and issues and baggage into the next relationship.
How did you get through your stumbling blocks?
Wow. You learn over time to adapt and adjust. Adjusting comes to those small, immediate situations that you may have to compromise or give in to. And it's okay if the relationship is valuable to you.
Has social media affected this? Texting and...
Oh, absolutely. I mean, people are meeting people. 30% of dating that takes place in our society today is the result of some online connection that is made. Again, the social media allows us to take on an identity that is really not who we are, just to sell ourselves in order to get a date. And that's a problem.
When you counsel couples, do you ever recommend divorce?
Yes, and let me qualify that. If I may quote my boss, Jesus, he said,
sure.
Infidelity is a legal reason for divorce. It's within the law, but it is not the reason for divorce. He said the only reason that people get divorced is hardness of heart. That's where someone becomes so cold, so hardened, so callous that they don't want to change. They don't want to embrace some resolution and make the relationship work. And when it's like that, or in situations where because of a man's insecurity, he's resorted to violence and physical abuse, and a woman's life is in jeopardy, that becomes a problem and can lead to divorce.
What's the biggest problem today couples have?
Communication. I would say communication is the biggest problem. There are so many voices beyond the voice of the husband and wife. There are all of these voices that are coming at them. They're inundated with information, philosophies, values, views that are inconsistent with their own philosophies and values. And I think that makes it difficult because communication is not in the ability to speak, it's in your ability to hear, to listen. And that's an art. You have to develop that art because it has to be with the total person.
Are gender relationships essential? I mean, do we have to get married?
You know, that's the question that millennials are asking. And I will tell you that the divorce rate has gone down. And it's not because fewer people are getting divorced, it's because fewer people are getting married. And they're rethinking that. And the millennial generation is willing to try it out, you know, live together. And let's see if it works. If it doesn't, let's move on.
Do you disagree with that?
Well, I think the problem with that is that love is about commitment. It's about loyalty. It's about long-term working out a relationship because you're not really married at the wedding day or the honeymoon. It's when you have that first conflict and you work through it and decide to stay in the relationship, that's when marriage really begins. Because relationships are forged in the crucible of crisis, especially when we're talking about a relationship so close as marriage.
You don't teach religion, right? What do you teach in your church?
I teach faith. I teach spirituality. I teach a relationship with God that affects all of who we are. It may be classified as religion. I don't call it that because there are many, many religions in this world.
Does that sometimes become a crutch for people?
I think that people have the capacity to make anything a crutch. I teach that a person should become independent, not independent of God per se, but independent of crutches and learn how to tap into their gifts, talents, and abilities and make the best of it. 3 rules that I follow. Number 1, accept your past. Number 2, trust God to manage your future. Number 3, make the best of every moment, every day that you have in your life.
Thank you, A.R. Great pleasure meeting you.
My pleasure. Thank you.
A.R. Bernard. The book is 4 Things Women Want from a Man. It's available right now. Thanks for watching. Remember, you can find me on Twitter at King's Things. And from New York, I'll see you next time. On Larry King Now, self-help experts Kute Blackson and A.R. Bernard.
I think a great starting point is to tell the truth to yourself. So many of us are living lives that are not authentic. The question I ask people is, what am I pretending to not know?
I interviewed many, many women from all walks of life, class, social background, economic, racial, cultural background. And at the end of the conversation, every one of them said, you know what? These 4 things really summarize what I'm looking for. Plus, the social media allows us to take on an identity that is really not who we are, just to sell ourselves in order to get a date. And that's a problem.
So many of us were constantly, on social media checking for how many likes, how many people commented on our posts, and it focuses our attention not inside but outside. I think we seek external validation when we're not loving ourselves. One of the things I encourage people, my clients, is to have a detox day, a digital detox day where you unplug from social media for a day, and as a result, you get to listen to what you really feel. You get to listen to the truth inside.
All next on Larry King Now. Welcome to Larry King Now. Our guest is Kute Blackson, teacher, inspirational speaker, and entrepreneur. Kute's book is You Are the One, a bold adventure in finding purpose, discovering the real you, and loving fully. What does the title mean, You Are the One?
I think many of us, we're looking outside of ourselves. We're looking outside of ourselves for love. We're looking outside of ourselves for someone to come and save us. And what I realize is no one's coming. The government's not going to save you. The aliens aren't coming. I mean, ultimately, we have the power within ourselves. And that's really the essence of the book.
And do you think most people don't know that?
Deep down as children, I think we have a sense. But somewhere along the line, we get conditioned and we forget who we really are. We forget the power inside of us. And either we abdicate responsibility or we become victims and we forget. So
why is it that so many people who seem to have it all are unhappy?
I think they've forgotten who they really are, ultimately. And as a result, they're seeking happiness outside of themselves, thinking that the drugs or the fame or the money is going to make them happy. And I found that nothing outside of yourself will make you happy unless you're truly happy inside.
Do we prioritize the wrong things?
I think we do. Sometimes you might get everything that you thought you wanted, only to realize that wasn't really it. And so much of our culture distracts us. So much of our culture, social media and television and what have you, distracts us from who we really are. So I think it's important that we remember who we really are at the core.
You tweeted recently, honor those that have been a part of your life journey, especially those that caused you pain.
Yeah.
Honor those that caused you pain.
Yeah.
Like, why? That's forgive. That's
it's
as old as the Old Testament.
It's about forgiveness, but I think every experience is your teacher. And every single, I believe that we are here on this planet to grow and evolve, to become who we really are, to become the highest version of ourselves. So every single experience, every single relationship, I think helps evolve us and teaches us about who we are, gives us the opportunity for that. So I say,